Probably the one most important maintenance task you can do, especially on a home computer, is backing up your data. Now, in a business environment, usually that's handled by IT on the servers, but they also don't usually back up your own personal local hard drives because they're simply not going to go around to each computer every night and do so. But in a business environment, usually you're also not keeping information on your local hard drive, so it's not so much of an issue. On a personal computer, it's definitely something you need to take a look at. Now, I certainly hope that you aren't familiar with or you don't know anybody who has been affected by having a house fire. I learned a long time ago from some firefighters that one of the things that they do, after of course saving people and pets, is they look for things like photo albums and family pictures. Now you may say, well, why do they do that? Why aren't they getting my big screen TV or my clothes or those types of things? The reason is very simply this. People can replace beds and clothes and big screen TVs. Also, pictures are portable. So, if in the course of fighting a fire, and I do know they have other priorities to think about, but if the opportunity presents itself, most firefighters will grab a photo album because they know that photo albums are memories. Now, why do I talk about that in a computer class? Because your computer is exactly the same way. There are lots of things on a home computer that we don't want to lose. Maybe a spreadsheet where we're keeping our budget or where we have tax receipts. But I guarantee you, especially in this digital age, that if you have a lot of digital pictures of your kids growing up, their first baseball game, their first Halloween, last Christmas, those are the things that you're really going to miss because they can't be reproduced. That's why backup is so important. Even though I love computers, they sometimes fail. As a matter of fact, sometimes the hard drives fail. And if all of your digital pictures are on your hard drive, guess what? You're going to be out of luck. So we certainly hope it doesn't come to that. We certainly don't want to lose some irrecoverable things like pictures, but really we don't want to lose anything. And it's really easy to avoid that from ever happening. And the answer is to back up. So let's see how we perform a backup using Windows. I'm going to go back to just the plain old default control panel. And remember that you can always find these options in Control Panel. And then under my System and Security, I actually have a link that says Backup Your Computer. I'm going to go ahead and give that a click. This nicely tells me that Windows Backup has not been set up. So on the right side, I'm going to click Set Up Backup. It may take a few seconds because what Windows is doing is it's going out and looking at the types of drives that you have attached to your computer. Some are not appropriate. For example, backing up to your own hard drive is really kind of silly because if your hard drive fails, having the backup there is going to be really not useful. I think you get that idea. Other types of media are also not appropriate, like a floppy disk or even a USB drive. What it's looking for are things like network drives, external hard drives, or second hard drives. On my system, I have temporarily plugged in a USB hard drive called MyBook. This is just a simple little box. I think it costs $60 or $70 from Costco. It has a lot of space on it. You can see that it actually has a total of 465, almost 500 gigabytes of space. So this is where I do my backups. Not only do I copy important files over on a regular basis, but this is where I have my Windows backup stored as well. Once it finds a drive, I simply select the drive, and then I can click on Next. You have some options for what you want to back up. You can let Windows choose, or you can choose yourself. Now, Windows is going to back up data files in libraries if you're on Windows 7. It's also going to do the desktop. If you don't have Windows 7, it will do Windows folders like My Documents and My Pictures. If you have saved everything to those files and folders, then that's really the best place and it's easy. If, on the other hand, you've created your own folders, then you might want to choose. For example, all of my business stuff is actually in a folder called PC Keys, and Windows may or may not find that that's an important folder. So I usually say, let me choose. Either one will work, but if you choose, make sure that you are consistently saving files to the locations that are going to be backed up. The only thing worse than not having a backup is having a backup but realizing you didn't back up one of your important folders. I'm going to let Windows choose, and I'll click Next. That's all there is to it. It says, what do you want to review? It says that we're going to back up items for all users, not just for one profile. It's going to be backed up to what is currently the E drive, to the drive called My Book. It's also going to use default Windows folders and locations. We also can see that it's currently scheduled to occur every Sunday at 7 p.m. Well, if you don't like that, you can go ahead and change the schedule. The schedule doesn't matter. It depends on how you work. For many people, it's overnight, after business hours. But if you tend to only use your computer late at night, then you might want to change it to maybe the middle of the day when you're normally at another job. After you set the device, the folders, and the schedule, then you would simply come to the bottom and say Save Settings and run the backup. Naturally, if you're setting up a backup, you want to start with a starting point, and that's what this will do. Now, I'm not going to do that because we don't want to take the time to watch it backing up everything, so I'm going to click Cancel at this point. Normally, it would have come back, and instead of saying it hasn't been set up, it would reiterate what we had done, the drive, the folders, as well as the schedule. That's really all there is to it, and it's kind of a set it and forget about it. As long as that particular drive that you chose is connected to the computer and the computer is on, it will run the backup however often you designated it to do so. Now, if something bad happens and you need to restore information from that drive, that likewise is simple. It's from the same window. You simply would say, I need to recover system settings on my computer. It will actually go through kind of a reverse process. It will look for your recent backup. If it finds the drive, great. If not, it will ask you what drive or what media you need to use. Then it will simply go through the process of restoring the files. This is the great peace of mind that you need, because computers are great, having information on them is wonderful, but I really have to tell you that even though I lecture over and over and over again to people that they need to back up, and everybody says they know it, usually it's not until the first catastrophe happens when people say, you know what, I knew I was supposed to do that, I just never got around to it. Or, I haven't done it in a year. There used to be a saying, "Thee who laughs last, laughs best." I've kind of modified that. And I used to say, "Thee who laughs last has a backup." And I've even modified that one. Now my saying is, I want you to remember this, "Thee who laughs last has a recent backup." And the easiest way to do that is to let Windows do the work for you. With that, all I have to do is simply come up, close this window down, and I now have my system ready to really do a lot of maintenance on its own. Let Windows Defender look for dangerous software. Hopefully I have an antivirus program as well. Let the backups happen, and I know how to go in and modify things like user settings, user accounts, passwords, even adding, removing, and changing programs and hardware using the Windows System Settings.